All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for joining us on a Friday morning here, maybe afternoon for some of you. Really excited to have this conversation with Matt here. I'll say we've known Matt at Alloy for a few years now, and I think he's a self-proclaimed data junkie and has done a really remarkable job leading an analytics revolution in his organization. So my name is Logan Ensign. I run our client solutions team over here at Alloy, and joining us is Matt Bergum. He's the director of Power Tools at Bosch, which from my vantage point is a pretty great title, Director of Power Tools. He runs the Power Tools division over there. Today's conversation is going to be pretty casual and really oriented around Q&A. So don't worry, we're not going to go through a ton of slides, and we'll have a lot of opportunity to ask questions and really get at what people are most interested in. And so just to start, really encouraging folks, I know some of you had submitted Q&A, and we'll address those absolutely, but also please feel free to add in the chat any additional questions you might have or comments, really trying to facilitate a good, healthy back and forth here. So to start, I'll say just we want to be able to give Matt an opportunity just to set a little more of the stage around Bosch generally, where they're at as a business and some of the strategic objectives and thoughts there. I'll give a little bit of an overview of Alloy. Like I said, we won't spend a ton of time there, and then we'll really dive into the meat of the conversation. So Matt, if you don't mind, you can introduce yourself and give us a little bit more context on the Bosch side.
Sure. Thanks, Logan. And yeah, thanks to Logan and Alloy for having me. I'm happy to be here and share some of our story. Like Logan said, I'm the director of Power Tools for Bosch Canada. You'll see on the slide here, we're showing a bit of an overview about Bosch. This is a global perspective of Bosch. Our Canada organization is much smaller, but Bosch is a giant organization for business sectors. One of the really cool things about Bosch, though, if you see on the left there, the circle, Bosch is actually 92% of our company is owned by a charitable foundation. We're a private organization, private charitable organization. So not a lot of people know that, but it's very cool to be a part of something like that. Again, for business sectors, my division is within the consumer goods sector, power tools, appliances, things like that. For over 400,000 associates across the world in 60 countries. In Canadian dollars, 110 billion in sales in 2021. So it's exciting to be a part of a big business. Like I said, our organization in Canada is a smaller team, smaller group, a part of the bigger set of Bosch. But we are happy to be here. So and then the next slide, just a couple of things that point out, just showing how big Bosch really is. In 2020, more than $8.5 billion in research and development. We're one of the world's largest international providers of technology and services. Of those 400,000 associates, 73,000 are a part of R&D. And you'll see our slogan tagline, everything about Bosch, everything we do is geared towards creating and providing products that are invented for life. And that leads to that last point of on average, Bosch registers about 15 patents a day. So it's a fun organization to be a part of, and happy to be here to share a little bit of our small story here in Canada. So,
wow, that last fact is pretty cool. I did not know that. That's remarkable. Well, excellent, Matt. And just to give a little bit more context for the group on the Alloy side, really what we're all about is this concept of connected planning and execution. And what does that mean? Well, starting on that planning side, we're really big believers that the plans, forecasts, those should all be generated using the absolute best data available to you. And so in many cases, that means taking advantage of actual point of sale data, actual channel inventory to generate those plans and forecasts. So, sell-in forecasting just doesn't cut it, especially in today's significantly less predictable demand trends. You think of what COVID has done, and I'm sure many of you are kind of experiencing okay, how can we predict what's going to happen in the future when so much of kind of consumer behavior and demand has shifted? So from our perspective, it's super important from the planning side to make sure you're looking at historic actual point of sale data, historic inventory positions, so you're not making the same mistakes next year that you made last year, and then also that you're incorporating current channel inventories and current sell-through insights to be able to get to that best plan. So we do a lot with our customers on that front, but also on that execution side, we recognize that no matter how good your plans, your forecasts are, they're going to be wrong. And so as a result, it's really important from our perspective for companies to be resilient and to be able to be really plugged into what's happening at the point of sale and really be able to respond to what they're seeing at the point of sale. So Alloy helps across really several dimensions on that front. One is pretty straightforward. We find that a lot of teams spend all sorts of time collecting data, right? Hey, I've got teams that are downloading data from all these different portals. We've got EDI teams managing the data. We consolidate that data. We have to harmonize it against all these different product identifiers and metrics, and then you have a lot less time really being able to get to insights and really getting to action. So on that first front, we automate that, right? We connect directly to trade partners. We automate the data ingestion and harmonization in as near real time as possible, so that these teams have a lot of time unlocked to really start to take advantage of the data. And then on that other side of the equation, we really like to partner with our customers and bring best practices. We bring more advanced analytics, exception-based reports, so that brands are getting the most out of that point of sale data. And that's where, Matt and his team have been focused the most with us. But what's neat is this integrates back in. And so as you get insights and as you get real-time signals and you see where your plans are maybe most significantly deviating, you can actually go right in, make those adjustments, and have this really great cycle that allows you to be a lot more reactive and or at least a lot more resilient as you see changes in the marketplace. So hopefully that sets the stage. Happy to kind of answer more questions on that front. I know a good number of you probably have some context on what we do, but actually hoping to dive into the meat of the conversation here now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can kick things off. And then just to reemphasize, as people have trickled in, please, as you kind of participate in the conversation here, ask questions in the chat. We really want to facilitate a good dialogue as we kind of dive in, make sure we're talking about what people are most interested in. But to get started here, Matt, through your partnership with Alloy, like I said, you really are a data junkie. I think you're a big believer in Bosch being data-driven and having a culture of being data-driven. Why is that important to you? And how have you kind of thought about leading your team to be more data-driven and have that data-driven mindset?
Yeah, no. So you kind of mentioned it in your intro there a bit. You touched on it, but without Alloy, without really digging into what POS data provides us, historically, we've really only relied on shipment data, what we have shipped from our warehouse to our retailers, to our customers, and that only really tells a very small part of the story, and it doesn't allow us to speak intelligently to our customers about their business and their metrics and their targets. So once we were able to have all of our data from each individual customer into Alloy, it allowed us and our salespeople, when they're having conversations with their customers, with their merchants, their buyers about their programs or line reviews, things like that, now we can speak intelligently and talk about the same data that they have in front of them. And without something like Alloy to do that, it was virtually impossible for us to do that. So,
well, and what I'll say is, we get to work with lots of different brands and sort of help in these data-driven transformations that organizations are trying to go through. And what we found is, we come with a perspective on change management and best practices, but the most successful partnerships require kind of both teams having that buy-in. And so from our perspective, driving that adoption it does require change management, right? Hey, we're asking teams to take more advantage of POS data, and kind of shifting the mindset a bit. And so, can you speak to some of the strategies you really leaned on, as you're trying to get the most out of point of sale data, most out of kind of a new technology? I think you've done a nice job there, and it's been nice to kind of partner with you on that front.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that there are a few people from my team on the call today, and any of them would probably say that I've been potentially annoying about engagement and usage of Alloy. I mean, it's Alloy is a phenomenal tool, but it's only as good as the data that's there and those that use it. And it's because of that mindset shift where historically for so many years we've talked about and we've used shipment data only. It's taken a bit of a transformation for our team to collectively start using other sources of data that we use Alloy for. So a few things that we've done over the last year or two. One thing is we created champions. We identified a couple of problems that we wanted to use Alloy to solve, and we identified either salespeople or people on our marketing team as the champion to figure out how to use Alloy to solve that problem or to improve a process. And once they figure that out, then the idea is for them to share that with the rest of the team. We also work closely with the group at Alloy to understand who on our team is using it, how long they're using it for, how often, those sorts of things, mostly to understand who are our real super users and who can we learn from. It can't just be one person. It has to be multiple people on the team that are all driving the rest of the organization to use it. And so we've identified who our super users are, and we lean on them to help get the rest of the team engaged. And then the last thing is I've done some simple things like challenges. I'll challenge our team to, by the end of the week, by the end of the month, use Alloy to find something that you didn't already know about your business, about your customer, and share that with the team, because it can lead us to some pretty good conversations and help other people on the sales team or marketing team. It turns a light bulb on for them to think about, oh, I can use that for my business. So yeah.
No, I love that. And on sort of that, hey, let's understand who's getting the most out of Alloy. What we find is siloed data kind of creates siloed teams. And so as we engage with customers, I think one of the more gratifying, exciting transformations that happens is, all right, now if a certain retail team is doing a really important analysis or have found a really kind of value adding way of leveraging point of sale data, hey, let's see if that Walmart team can teach the Canadian Tire team and vice versa, to be able to kind of have those collaborations. So you're kind of the sum of the parts, you get lots of good collaboration. It makes it, I think, a little more straightforward to do that. So that's been really neat to see, and that makes a lot of sense that you want to kind of take advantage of all the mind share across the teams and what people are learning.
For sure, definitely.
Well, what I've noticed as well is you manage a huge business, and I think you may not have a massive team commensurate to the size of the business. And I would guess a good number of folks on the call may be in a similar situation of, wow, we got to do a lot with maybe not excess resources. And so, how do you tackle wrangling all of the retailer data, the e-commerce data, to make the right business decisions for your division?
Yeah, I'm not sure there are too many companies that would ever argue that they have too many people that they know what to do with. But yes, our team is relatively small and nimble, and we have to rely on tools like this to help that. And when you think about not only Canada has some specific complexities that might be different than some of our US counterparts. But regardless of the country, every customer will send their data a different way, whether it's a flat file or EDI or a different way, and they're all in different formats. Some include different information. It's a mess. And we tried to do it on our own. We've got a handful of, we have 400,000 employees. And we tried to figure it out and how to consolidate it. It was virtually impossible, and requires a lot of people and resources. And so Alloy has really helped us bring all that together and consolidate that in a place that we can see it all in the same place, in the same format at the same time. And so that's just been a huge point for us. Now, again, like you mentioned at the beginning, Logan, instead of spending all of that time trying to put all the data in one place and format it and clean it up, now our team, the same number of people, can spend that time looking at the data and gaining actionable insights and things that we can actually do with it versus just trying to understand what it means. So
perfect, Matt. And actually a question I think came in from the audience here. Eddie has asked, how does Bosch collect their resellers store-wise inventory and sales, and how does Alloy make that easier? I can kind of address that from a high level. Alloy, we work with hundreds and hundreds of trade partners, and as a result, have been able to build direct integrations by retailer. And as probably most of you know, there's not really a standard method for retailers to share data with their suppliers. And so what we've done on our end is go through that exercise, that work of, all right, we understand how that reseller A, transmits data, whether it's through a portal, whether it's through EDI, whether they share a spreadsheet, whether, no matter how they share that data, Alloy already has pre-built integrations with resellers. And then we have a data platform that's built for retail data. And so we map all of that retail data into a single data platform so that when you look at sales dollars, that's going to be net sales dollars at sell-through price. When you put in, out of stock percent, this is going to be a consistent methodology across all your partners. So that's the Alloy answer. I don't know, Matt, if you have more to add on how does Bosch collect that data and how does Alloy make it easier?
Yeah, I mean, you answered it from a technical perspective exactly. I mean, from a vendor or a manufacturer perspective, we haven't really ran into any issues where any of our major customers, we couldn't find a way with Alloy to get the data in. Like we've said, they all come different ways, EDI, flat file. So many customers now have their own portals that we have to log into. I would say Alloy has been extremely helpful and flexible in always finding a solution to figure out how to get the data in. I wouldn't guess, but Alloy, I ask for a lot of things to the Alloy team, and maybe I come across as annoying, but 99% of the time we find a way to do it. And if you have the data in some shape, fashion, form, file, whatever, usually Alloy can figure out how to get it into the system. So it's been great to navigate that with them. It's been great. So
brilliant. And Eddie asked as well, what about APAC and the EU and sort of retailer coverage? I don't know in your case, I think it's predominantly North America in your case that we're bringing in data. So I can address that. What we find is we work with lots of global resellers as well, with other customers of ours. But we also find is once you exit North America, often the data is a little bit less granular. And so to Matt's point, we've got an open data model, open data platform, and really do have experience working in APAC, EU, other parts of the globe. And so happy to kind of unpack that more, but yeah. Cool. Excellent. Well, no, thanks, and keep the questions coming. It's great to kind of have more of a real-time conversation here. There's also a question in the Q&A here, and so the question is, I'm also a Canadian Alloy user with a lot of the same retail partners that Bosch works with, and so the question is, if you only could look at one thing in Alloy daily, what would it be and why? So I think putting you on the spot a little on, hey, get the most meaningful thing to look at. I don't know if you've got, and maybe we can be a little, some of the most important things if it's hard to pick just the one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, sales data is obviously the most important thing. That there's a lot of different factors that play into that, but to even be more specific than that, considering everything we've gone through with the pandemic, my dashboard, one of the nice things about Alloy is every individual user can create their own dashboard specific to the things that they want to see. So my dashboard is very different than any of our individual salespeople. The top box on my dashboard is rolling 52-week sales 2022 versus 2019. I'm skipping 2020 and 2021 because of all of the exciting things that happened during those years. And I really want to keep a pulse on what's happening versus 2019 as the true health of our business. And so if I had to pick one thing, it's probably that. So.
Awesome, Matt. Excellent, excellent. Well, another question, I think that what's been a really neat project with you all, and I think something that's been top of mind for you is really managing promotions with your customers. That once you've got all this sell-through data at the actual sale price, we find customers are interested in promotional analysis, price elasticity, all that sort of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more on the promotions front, what the challenge or kind of the objective is, and how you're thinking about that and approaching that?
Yeah, this is a problem that we are still actively solving within Alloy, and we're still working through it. It has nothing to do with the ability of Alloy. It's more getting all the data in the right place and looking at it properly. But our business is very promotional, and I'm sure many people on this call have similar scenarios where the way that we fund those promotions is through various sorts of POS credits or VFFs, depending on the retailer, what they call them. And it's an accounting nightmare to track and manage all of those credits. We think we know what the customer is going to deduct, and they deduct something different 5 months later. And so it's been a manual process for us to track it. And now what we're working with Alloy on is creating a dashboard that will allow us to upload some more of our internal information to track that for us. These are the dates of the promotion. This is the item. Tell me how many units were sold during that time period, and tell me what that POS credit is going to be. And now we have something that spits out exactly what we need to accrue for from an accounting perspective, or be prepared for that customer to deduct eventually. It's very manual for us today, but very confident that we can solve that or make that process much more efficient using Alloy. So, yep.
Excellent. Well, that makes sense. And another question here is, how do you make sure that the data collected from the retailer is that real sales data, and not manually changed for the supplier? So I guess maybe the core of it is okay. Yeah, how do you make sure that data is kind of the real sales data, or is this something you run into?
Yeah, I can attempt to answer it. It's an interesting question. So there's a couple of things I would say here. At some level, we have to trust that the data that our customers are giving us is accurate, and there's only so much verifying that we can do there. But however, I would say one of the things that we do often is we give ourselves a gut check. Every customer, many large customers, they have their own portals. They have other ways to look at the data in their portals, and we'll give ourselves a gut check to make sure that everything we've imported into Alloy matches up to what the customer is seeing. Back to what I was saying at the beginning, if the goal is to be able to speak intelligently with our merchants and our buyers and speak the same language and the same data, if the data doesn't match up, then we look like we don't know what we're talking about. So we do gut check that with our customers' portals and sometimes directly with the merchant. But I've never ran into an issue where we caught something or something looked off where the data was being manipulated in any certain way. So, yep.
Well, and keep these questions coming. This is great. We actually got another one here, so we're going off script here, which is awesome. The question came in: can we monitor price fluctuations of e-commerce products on different portals for the same kind of SKUs? Normally, a kind of price war, and so essentially, are you doing much on e-commerce price fluctuations and kind of taking a look cross-channel and kind of is that something that's part of the analytics or what you all are thinking about?
So Alloy might hate me for saying this, but I mean that's a concept that I've wanted to talk about with Alloy in the future of something that would be really cool to do. I guess what we are doing today with Alloy is using it to measure average price. As we go through, I'm sure many people on this call have gone through various forms of price increases over the last year, and one of the ways that we have to make sure that that's happening is we also see that same increase on the retail side. And so Alloy, every single one of our customers, we pull in average price, we pull in the actual retail price that those products are being sold at. And so we're watching average price year over year also climb. Are we doing it on an item level, customer level, and comparing across retailers to manage map programs and price wars? No, but we probably could if we really wanted to. The data is all there. It's not something that we've done, but it's probably possible. So
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Matt. We actually just, well, we should talk more about in your environment. We've done this with another one of our customers of map enforcement, right? Because I do know that's top of mind for a lot of organizations. So thanks for the question, and I do think there's a lot you can do there. Just looking at kind of average price and making sure you're taking advantage of that.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we'd be remiss in this conversation not to talk about how you've managed the pandemic, and how Alloy maybe has played a part there. We know that for a lot of our customers, COVID has really accelerated that shift of business more from brick and mortar to digital and e-commerce. So can you talk about that and any key learnings generally, and how you've kind of thought about more effectively managing that shift?
For sure. I mean, as I'm sure everybody has experienced, digital has exploded over the last couple of years. I would like to say that even before the pandemic, it was obviously very important to us. We knew as our digital business continued to grow, but it has exponentially grown over the last couple of years. And what Alloy has helped us do that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise is really watch that shift from digital e-commerce from brick and mortar to e-commerce. And this is something that we spent a lot of time making sure was explicitly clear in our data, is separating in-store sales, true brick and mortar sales, from all of the other forms of digital. So BOPIS, BOSS, BODFIS, you name it, there's a million other acronyms for it. But we really wanted to see all of those separated so that we had a true look at our business. And so again, I talk about my specific dashboard. Another key piece of my dashboard is seeing our year-to-date sales and the percentages of how much of that is happening at brick and mortar, how much of that is happening in BOSS and BOPIS, and how are those changing year over year. We have seen in the last in 22, in the last 3-4 months, we are shifting a lot back to brick and mortar, especially in Canada. As lockdowns are lifting up, we now no longer have to wear masks in Ontario, and so we are seeing a lot of that shift back to brick and mortar. However, Alloy also helps us see that it's still significantly, our e-com business is still significantly higher than pre-pandemic, and so a lot of shifting back and forth. But now we can again speak very intelligently about where our customers are shopping and make decisions on resources and the structure and the team on how we have to manage that. So
makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and I think a lot of customers are asking, are these permanent shifts, right? How have actual buyer behaviors changed as things reopen? Have we actually seen a shift in some consumer behavior that we're going to have a higher share? And so I do know a lot of folks are keeping a really close eye on those splits, right? And being able to understand and even seeing geographic trends and to your point, how does Ontario compare? And so yeah, it's, I think, something we're all learning as we go. But having that finger on the pulse of what's going on right now, I think is step one there. Yeah. Well, we want to be interactive here, and if folks have joined us in the past here, have enjoyed these, and so we actually want to put it out to a poll. We've got a question to get folks to be able to participate here. So over 2 years into the pandemic, are you all seeing shifts back to brick and mortar from digital? And what is that kind of trend looking like for you all? So yeah, if you go ahead and provide an answer here, we can take a look and see if folks are seeing similar trends or if we are a little bit all over the place.
And maybe while people are answering that, just kind of back to the other question about what we've seen with the change in the pandemic. Another side benefit is working for such a large organization. There's a lot of reporting up that has to happen, a lot of forms and files and to fill out so that our global team can see what's happening on a global scale. And this has been a very specific question from every country that we do business in is what's your in-store sales, what's your digital sales, and how are those changing? Without something like Alloy, that would have been a very time-consuming task and likely would not have been accurate. So from just an internal reporting perspective, it's a couple of clicks of a button for us now, and we can spit that data out pretty quickly. So.
All right. No, so it looks like, hey, we are seeing a shift back, and maybe the majority of folks, although yeah, not an enormous sample size, but I think we can probably are seeing this with our customers as well, that hey, we are seeing a shift back to brick and mortar, but less than pre-pandemic. But I do think we found it does depend, right, on what your product is and sort of what the strategy's been. And I think it's fascinating that someone had said actually it's even more than pre-pandemic. And so I think that we even have customers where it varies by product line, right? If you have an impulse buy at the cash register versus something back of store, you might actually see inverse trends, and it's important to be able to get a grip on what's going on there. So something I think we recommend folks continue to monitor, because I think it's anyone's guess and they're good hypotheses, but there are always surprises in the data there. Well, excellent. Another question came in here, and I think it's relevant on the e-commerce side and more generally as well. So how kind of dynamic is the data update in kind of collecting the data from different portals, and then I think getting and being usable by the user? Curious if you can provide a little color there.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, every customer updates their data in different time frames. And for example, Lowe's is a customer of ours. We get data from Lowe's daily in Canada. So, and we see that daily. I think we're usually a day behind. So if I were to log in today, I would be able to see yesterday's business. But to me, that's phenomenal. It really depends on the cadence that the customer provides. Alloy is usually very quick to get it in as soon as they have access to the data. We have other customers that only give us data in weekly chunks. I believe Canadian Tire is a weekly data dump for us. But as soon as we have that data, the next day it's in the system. So it's the roadblock is much more on the customer side versus the Alloy side in terms of timing.
And to editorialize a little bit, we know there are particular days, if you're an Amazon customer or a Walmart or supplier or Walmart supplier, where everyone wants to know how they did. You think Black Friday, you think seasonal Prime Day, and so our because we're automated, we're going to get it as soon as it's available, even if the portal's crashing, because it's automated. You don't have to be trying to pull data in all day. It's going to be there when it's available. So yeah. Well, hey Matt, I know you had a vision as you brought us in and we partnered together. I'm curious on, okay, I think you probably knew chunks of what to expect in kind of getting a grip of the data and being able to really drive value with your customers. But what surprised you about any of the insights over the last couple of years that you've been able to? What insights, I guess, surprised you in Alloy as you kind of brought the data together?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one I would say, I kind of already mentioned it, but the ability to see all of the different fulfillment methods, that's what it's called with an Alloy, but in store, online, which type of online, the ability to see that in one place across multiple customers has been pretty phenomenal. And so that has been a huge win for us to see the data in that way, again, to answer all those questions and make decisions off of that. So that would be probably the one that we love the most. I mentioned this to Logan earlier, but when anybody asks me to demo Alloy, or if I'm training somebody for the first time, I always jump to geographic heat maps. It's, on one hand, it's just really cool to see it that way. Again, something that we would never have had before. But it gives us a lot of actionable insight. If you think about the pandemic, and especially in Canada, where every province had a different strategy around lockdowns and capacity and retailers, it really helped us see where that was changing by province. And again, now as we see that shift back to digital, that heat map is pretty, again, it gives us a lot of actionable insight. If you consider our e-com data, one of the nice things about that is Alloy can actually see not only where it's shipping from. For us, we have one warehouse in Ontario, so that doesn't tell us much, but it's much more about zip code or postal code data. And so we can see where all of our e-com dropship business is shipping to. And now again, with the heat map, we can see which provinces, which regions are still growing, which ones are struggling, again, because of that shift back to brick and mortar. So to be able to see by province in a really cool way is helpful. And then if you think about it from depending on the size of your team, if you have territory managers or in-store demo associates or things like that, where you really want to be able to break it down by geographic regions, whether that be by state in the US or by province here, again, it's a great way to split the data up. So.
No, I love that too. I think it's visually designed well, and so it is just nice to look at. But to your point, that idea of, look, we know the ship to postal code, and we also know the postal code of that particular store. And if you want to understand geographic trends, sort of retailer agnostic, having this all in one place allows you to do that. And so a lot of customers, to your point, are taking advantage of COVID trends and different policies across different regions and how that looks. It also sort of unlocks, you can actually see weather patterns often in the data, right? Oh, well, we know there was a storm in the Midwest because week over week we're down there, and it was sunny weather in California. Week over week we're up there. And then also, marketing assessments too. That's maybe a little more channel agnostic. So no, it makes sense, and I do really like that as well. So. Well, excellent. Another question came in here. Do you all collect, use, analyze sales data relative to competitors? So competitive data, category data, in the EU, in-house share. Is that something you all look at, and how do you kind of take advantage of that data?
Yeah, it's another good question. It's honestly, it's not something that Alloy would really be involved with. Again, one of the thing to remember is that the data that we put in Alloy, 99% of the time is whatever data the customer gives us. So in a normal world, we wouldn't be receiving any competitive data about our customers. Share of shelf is interesting. It's something that we also do on the side, but we don't do that within Alloy. It's much more of as a market share piece that is a bit of a different animal. So I guess the short answer is no, but something to think about for sure.
Excellent. Well, as you have gone through a transformation. From my assessment, I think you all have really been able to get a grip of that data and have taken good advantage of it. And so, as sort of an expert, what advice do you have for companies who are looking to get a better handle on their retail and their e-commerce data?
Yeah, I think this is an important one, and every company might have a a different approach, but the first question I think is important to ask is what problem are you trying to solve? And really take a look at what are you doing today, and what is the problem that you're trying to solve. For us in Canada specifically, it was a enormous complexity of data that we just could not manage, and we really needed to see everything in one place. If we were ever going to get to a place where we were using the data that we have to make actionable decisions or insightful decisions, the only way to do that was to be able to find a way to put everything in one place, and it's virtually impossible to do that yourself. And so that was the problem we were trying to solve. It might be different for other organizations. If you're primarily with one retailer, for example, and you might have good data from that retailer. I haven't really seen a retailer-specific portal that does what Alloy can do. And so there's a lot of other bells and whistles and features that come with putting your data in the Alloy that I don't think is possible in many other customer-specific portals. So you might be specific to one retailer, but everybody has a different problem to solve. And I think it's important to understand that and then talk to the team at Alloy to see what the solution would be. So.
Awesome. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, to keep the audience engaged here, we actually have one more poll question here. And so here, what are the primary challenges you're seeking to solve with your data solution? Like Matt had said, and couldn't agree more, that it's so important to make sure we've identified objectives, strategic objectives, and those, may not be all of these. It probably is some combination of these. And so as you think about wrangling your data, I think it is important first to make sure we're taking that step back and saying, all right, what are we trying to solve here?
Yeah. New product launch management is an interesting one. We are launching a lot of new products this year and fully intend to use Alloy to track those and show us where it's being successful, which customer, which region, which province, that sort of thing. That's something that we've essentially never done before. So
yeah, and I think some of our customers are just getting so beaten up by OTIF fines, right? And needing to kind of get a grip on that. Like we'd said, I think demand has increased, well, has been even more difficult to predict, and we find that retailers aren't terribly forgiving in many cases there. And so how can you start to try and manage that? I think it's something we run into a fair amount. Yeah. All right. So a little bit of everything. I know we'd addressed new product launches. That first one, we don't want to understate that. I do think there's absolutely business value across these other dimensions, but just having it all in one place, right? Being able to share with executive teams how we're doing, and being able to see that weekly, not monthly, and being able to kind of have that just automatically happen rather than require full-time employees putting that together. So absolutely makes sense there. Well, great. I think really last question for you here, Matt. And like I said, please keep the questions coming. This has been great. But kind of generally speaking, what would you say are those critical success factors for undertaking a new data project, right? I know we've talked a little bit about this, but do you have more to add on that front? Yeah, just helpful to kind of give a little more color there.
Yeah. No, I mean, for any company that's looking at doing something like this, if you're not with Alloy today, or any new data project, or if you are with Alloy but you think that there's a lot of room to improve, I think one of the things that's been successful for us is not only me but the rest of our leadership team in Canada being the real champions for driving our team to use and engage, and that compounds on itself, and we all continue to learn more and use more. And so it has to come from the top. And so that's been successful for us. I will say that it's critical success factor, or something to just you must be aware of, is that anything like this, it's a lot of work. Again, we talked about it's a lot of work up front. Our customers send data many different ways, and when you really start digging into it, you will find things that might be wrong on the customer side and require some cleanup. But a lot that work pays off exponentially quickly. But it does take some work to get everything connected, get everything in. But once it's done, it's essentially it's done for forever, and it's just maintenance after that. But the upfront commitment is strong, and so that's something to be prepared for. The other critical success factor, I would say, is Alloy was phenomenal with our team as we continue to improve that engagement. Abby she's now on the product solutions side, but spent hours and hours with our team training, helping build dashboards. What we would do initially was come to Abby with a problem or something we wanted to analyze, and she would use that as an example to teach our team how to create a dashboard to solve that. And over time, now we don't need Abby to do that for us anymore, because our team knows how to manipulate all the data in any way they want. And so Abby and Alloy have been pretty phenomenal in helping train our team, and it has to happen that way. Otherwise, we wouldn't use it. So,
well, great to hear, and we'll pass the note over to Abby. But no, I mean, we really do. We're big believers in. I think you said this early on, Matt, that hey, no matter how great a tool is, no matter how great the data is, if it sits on the shelf, if people don't know what to do with it, then it's not going to deliver value. And so, yeah, we do like we're high touch, and we recognize that a key component is helping customers really get familiar with the data and the application to be able to get the most value out of it.
yeah.
Well, excellent. Hopefully, people feel like they learned something. I learned something. 15 patents a day. That's quite impressive. And really, really do appreciate folks participating here. And I know, Matt's actually super willing to answer questions offline, and so we can keep the conversation going. But really do appreciate people's participation today. Hopefully, it got people's Friday started off right. And otherwise, if no other questions, we can sign off here. So everyone have a wonderful weekend, and thank you again, Matt, for all the perspective and insight.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me. And like Logan said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out.